Good morning. Today we're going to look at chapter 17 and at least part of chapter 18 of the book of Revelation. We're nearing the end of our yearly or our annual reading through the New Testament in a year. But in chapter 17, 18, and 19, and basically through the end of this book of Revelation, are talking about some of what goes on in the world after the seven plagues have been complete. They're not completed, they're still ongoing. The world is still existing, and these seven plagues that these seven angels blowing the seven horns that we talked about in chapter 16 are still playing out. And so after another angel comes to John in the beginning of chapter 17 and says, "Come, and I'm going to show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits." And they go and there's a vision, and John sees this scarlet woman sitting on a scarlet beast, and he's filled with marvel and wonder. This beast has seven heads and 10 horns, and he marvels at that. And starting in verse 6, then the angel says, "Why do you marvel at this? This is what this all means. The beast that you saw was and is not, and will ascend from the abyss, from the bottomless pit, and then will go to perdition, or to the eternal punishment." So this beast is very symptomatic of Satan. And the scarlet woman that's sitting upon this scarlet beast is symptomatic, especially with the seven horns on the beast, symptomatic of seven empires, five of which have been and are gone, the sixth most likely being the Roman Empire, which was empowered at this time. And the seventh horn was symbolizing a future kingdom. And whether that kingdom has come yet or not, or is now, is one of those questions that is up for great interpretation. For a while it was thought that the Soviet Union was that, and some people say, well, the United States is that, or some people said, that the United Kingdom, when Britain was ruling such a huge part of the world, But so this seventh kingdom is in question. We don't know about that for sure. But there's imagery, and it's a part of the mystery of Revelation. And I'm going to talk, probably not until Monday, about 4 different ways that people have interpreted Revelation throughout history. So anyway, in verse 7, chapter 17, with this the scarlet beast and the scarlet woman, as I said, represent Satan is the beast, and the scarlet woman would represent different empires, different kings, different people that Satan has somehow given power or influenced them as they've had power in the world. And it says the 10 horns it says, verse 12, "The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they will receive their authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast." And again, 1 hour, is that 1 hour of our time, 60 minutes, or is that an hour of God's time? Because God's timing is so much different than ours is. So questions we don't know. But it does say, verse 13, "They are of one mindset, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. They will make war upon the Lamb." So these rulers are going to be influenced greatly by Satan. And they will be warring against the faithful who believe in Jesus Christ, who follow God. But there's a reminder that God's sovereignty is not threatened by this at all. I mean, God is still more powerful, and always will be, always has been, always will be more powerful than any other force. And that's when Satan rebelled against God, all those eons ago, and was banished from heaven. Satan and his angels that followed him were banished from heaven, and that's a part of the imagery of this beast who was and is not. I mean, so that's, was and is dead, but will ascend from this bottomless pit, and then will go into, eternal punishment. So the symbolism is there, but through all of that, we need to know that God is most powerful, and that God's sovereignty, God's authority, God's love, God's grace, God's forgiveness are not in any way threatened by the devil. I mean, the devil can control a lot of people. The devil leads a lot of people away from God, away from faith. The devil promises great things, but can't promise eternal salvation. Can't promise forgiveness and love and grace that comes. And this is what cannot be taken away from God. The Lord's sovereignty is not decreased or threatened by anything that Satan can do, because Satan and all of his followers will be going into perdition, or the bottomless pit. Hell is another common word that we would talk about it, but it's one of those words that, we don't like to say as pastors or as people. I mean, it's not a place where we want to be. And it's not a place where we want to really tell someone to go, because if you say it to somebody, is that really what you want for that person? The eternal punishment, the eternal separation from God. It's just, it's a hard thing to do that way. So again, this scarlet woman that John sees is emblematic of Babylon, Satan, separation from God, rulers who take people away or lead people away from God. And it's, it's referring to the satanic influence that comes from Satan, himself. Satanic influence, definitely that way, but it is all things that work against God. So that talking about Babylon as a symbol talks about separation from God. And in chapter 18, it says another angel comes down and has great authority. And this angel cries out, Babylon is fallen, is fallen. And when God says something twice, we should pay more attention. When God says something twice, we know for sure, that it's done. So if Babylon has fallen, here in Revelation, this Babylon is being the great influencer, the one of Satan's influence. If Babylon is fallen, Satan is fallen. He no longer has the power that he had in the past. It's God is starting to wrap him up. God is starting to get ready to banish him from that. But yet, what happens when Babylon does fall that way? You look at, starting at chapter 9 of verse 9 of chapter 18, the kings who committed all of these things and lived luxuriously, they lament. They're sad. They're mourning that, Babylon is no more. Their power, their authority is gone. And merchants lament. They mourn, that all of this. There are the people who have been taking advantage of others, the people who have been following Satan, mourn the loss of their leader. But when we get down to verse 17 of chapter 18, it says, for in 1 hour such great riches came to nothing. So these people, these rulers, these kingdoms, these businessmen or whatever it is, who have built up huge accumulations of money, huge followings, by illegal means or by whatever, and by following Satan, by not believing and following in God, in 1 hour's time, it's all gone. That's what it says. For in 1 hour, everything is gone. Every shipmaster, all who travel by ship, sailors, and as many, they stand at a distance, and they cried out when they saw the smoke, and they said, what happened to this great city, Babylon? This picture again of Satan and all of Satan's power and what people were worshiping and looking at him. And they said, all of this, and all of these people who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth, but in 1 hour she's made desolate. In 1 hour's time, it's done. And then it says, rejoice over her, O heaven, verse 20. Rejoice over her, O 20, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. So God has extended his wrath, his punishment upon Satan, upon all of those evildoers, upon all of that, everything and stuff that way. But yet, I have a question that I wrote in my Bible. Where is this joy in all the suffering? How can we as faithful believers and followers of Jesus Christ have joy when we see the suffering of all the others? The joy comes that we still know God. The joy comes that we are faithful and that God has saved us from all of this. I'm going to take just a couple more minutes and finish up chapter 18 when it talks about, then a mighty angel takes up a stone like a great millstone and throws it into the sea, and thus with the violence the great city of Babylon shall be thrown down and shall not be found anymore. So there will be a time that all of the authority of Satan will be gone, that Satan himself will be gone, that all of Satan's angels, his minions, his followers, they will all be gone. And for many, it's going to be a time of great sorrow because they have lost everything. It's like, earlier in chapter 18 when the kings and the merchants and all of these people were mourning. They were sorrowful that they had lost everything because Satan was no more. Because where they got theirs was from Satan rather than from God. Today, December 26th, 2020, there are so many things that seem to have been taken away from us this year with the coronavirus and everything that's going on. But one thing that can never be taken away from me and from you, hopefully, is your faith and your trust in God. Your belief in this newborn King, this Jesus Christ, the Messiah, who was born a lowly birth in a manger. Because we build our faith, our hope, we build our lives on that promise from God. I'm going to read one last thing that I have written in my Bible, my handwriting, at the very end of chapter 18, right before chapter 19 begins. A society built on extravagance, luxury, lust, pride, and callousness of human life is doomed to fail. A society built on extravagance, lust, luxury, pride, callousness of human life is doomed to fail. When we build our hopes on a pipe dream, and Satan is a pipe dream, if that is where our hope is, we are much to be pitied. I'm thankful my hope is in Jesus Christ, my Lord, this little baby in a manger. And may he richly bless you with the joy of Christmas each and every day.